In our first story, the Energy Ministry says its checks so far on the contamination of some 5 million litres of fuel at the bulk oil storage and transportation company does not in any way support allegations that the company's managing director had any interest in the incident. The sector minister at the news conference on Tuesday said investigations by the Bureau of National Investigations, the National Security and the National Petroleum Authority all cleared the managing director, Alfred Obeng. The ministry had only last week set up a committee to investigate the incident. That committee, according to Chairman Tinge Jakun, will now submit its findings to another committee set up to recommend ways to avoid the perennial contamination of fuel at the company. Joy News Favor Nunu has more in the following report.
The Energy Minister told journalists that though there have been suggestions that the Managing Director of BOST deliberately caused the contamination so he could benefit from it subsequently, a cursory look at the dates the incident happened showed that the MD had not assumed office.
The contamination of the 5 million litres occurred on January the 18th. This was before the current BOST MD assumed office. BOST, as a matter of practice, has sold contaminated products as far back as 2014. BOST received expressions of interest for the purchase of contaminated products from 15 companies, and Movenpina offered the highest price of 1 cedi 30 pesos, which formed the basis for the selection. This is the highest price ever offered for contaminated products. 8. It is not the case that the MD of BOST owns the company that bought the products. And 9, it is also not true that the address of or phone number of Movenpina is the same as that of the BOST MD.
He however made some recommendations on how future disposals of contaminated fuel should be handled.
Review and introduce new regulations on the sale and discharge of contaminated products. B, codify and publish widely a competitive tender process based on transparent advertisement for the sale of products that have become contaminated. C, register and certify only corporate entities that will be designated to buy contaminated products directly from BOST. No unlicensed company, individual, or union member can trade in contaminated products henceforth.
The committee set up to prevent a contamination of fuel at BOST is headed by the head of chemical engineering at KNUST, Dr. Lawrence Dakwa.
The ministry is therefore asking Dr. Lawrence Dakwa, head of the Chemical Engineering Department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, an acknowledged expert in the field, to lead the committee to consult all relevant stakeholders to review the entire operations of BOST in order to prevent future contamination of products.
One interesting point that came out from this is, what do we make of the committee, the 8-member committee that the same ministry set up to look into the BOST contaminated fuel sale? And his response to this question is that, to a very large extent, the functions of the committee, the terms of reference that were assigned this committee, have not dissolved. It hasn't changed.
This committee still remains valid. Circumstances that created the off-spec products, review of procedures to evacuate products. We are not looking at the specific transaction and the allegations therefrom.
And the minority in Parliament is also accusing the BNI of attempting to cover up the recent issue of contaminated fuel at the bulk oil storage and transportation company, BOST. It says the decision to clear the BOST MD, Alfred Obing, of any wrongdoing in the scandal is uncalled for. Addressing a news conference also on Tuesday on the matter, Deputy Minority Spokesperson on Energy, Adam Mutawakilu, said the committee set up by the minister to look into the issue will not come up with anything substantive.
This is a pure cover-up. Please, let's be serious, Ghanaians. Nana Addo and Bawumia government must be serious. They must take Ghanaians serious. This massive corruption that has taken place, you single out the MD. Is it because we in minority are calling for the head of the MD? And that is the justice call, very clear justice we made by saying that the MD should step aside. Investigation should be continued. With this cover-up, all what the committee will be doing is impotent. Why do you not produce any resource? They are simply using BNI as a cover-up for the MD to continue and stay in office and stifle the work of the committee that they have set up. Even the committee, how can you give them term of reference without a time frame to bring the report? That itself is a big problem. The committee can take 1 year, can take 4 years, can take 10 years to submit their report. So you see the intentional move by Nana Addo Bawumia government to ensure that the corruption that has taken place at BOST do not go anywhere. This is very clear.
So what are you expecting? That this committee should have been given the mandate to investigate the BOST MD as well on whether or not he did the right thing?
Very important. The committee, first of all, the BOST MD should have stepped aside, should have at least interdicted by now to show a sign that the President Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia are committed to fighting corruption. Let the investigation go on. You give them a time frame within which to submit the report. None of this has happened. So the committee is just giving a field day.
Meanwhile, the Energy Minister, Boakye Agyarko, has also denied claims by the minority that the findings of the state security agencies amounted to a cover-up.
Where is the cover-up? We have been for example, on the allegations that were put forth, we have provided evidence. We have the list of all the companies, the 49 companies and individuals that traded off specs, right? It's a fact. We've put that matter out. We've put the articles of incorporation of the traders also in the public domain. When the matter came up, if there was going to be a cover-up, then there would have been an orchestrated response so that all the agencies would have been singing the same tune. But in the immediate aftermath of the event, you could see that MPA was saying something, this one was saying something not coherent. We suggest to you that each independent agency was doing its own independent work. But as the evidence emerged into fact, there emerged a convergence of views and opinions. If we were interested in cover-up, we would have from day one orchestrated and choreographed a response, which we didn't do. So I don't know where my good friend is coming up with the question or the issue of cover-up.
Government has assured that work is ongoing to clear debts owed service providers under the National Health Insurance Authority. Parliament approved the formula for the distribution of the National Health Insurance Fund to the tune of some $2.2 billion. The minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, urged government to fulfill its campaign promise and ensure that service providers were paid amount owed them. Already, the Deputy Finance Minister, Abnal Sayasari, has already indicated they've started the payments.
The words he uses, VIPTAC's new NHI board to rescue, resuscitate scheme. Mr. Speaker, I have some advice for the Vice President. He chairs the economic management team. It's the same economic management team which has cut the national health insurance. That is wrong. That is where he must lead the policy change, not in newspaper headlines that you should rescue or resuscitate. He must lead the rescue effort, and to succeed in the rescue effort will help him is to adjust revenue accruals to the National Health Insurance Scheme, not cap it or cut their budget from 2 billion to 1.5. No, he must lead it. Dr. Bawumia congratulated the new board and charged them to work hard to prevent the NHIS from its current steady crawl towards a cash and carry regime. Mr. Speaker, let this House, in debating this fund, work towards avoiding a speeding crawl towards cash and carry. That is the state of health insurance. Whether it started or not, there is a government which is responsible, and there is revenue accruing. And Mr. Speaker, that is the note on which I want to conclude. And my conclusion is that the Ministry of Finance must take urgent steps to make available to the National Health Insurance their outstanding obligations and VAT so collected in the name of the health insurance. You said with capping, there will be better finances. So having cap, we expect that January to March, pay them the VAT 2.5%, which is theirs. Then from March to June, pay them the health insurance. Because you took 500 million, assuming that the 1.5 will be available. That is not being done.
Honorable, do you stand on the point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to correct something that...
Point of correction, proceed. Honorable members, point of correction, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to let the House know that we have made payments from January to March this year for NHIS. So we are on top of it. And then we are also trying to, Mr. Speaker, we are also trying to pay the debt. Mr. Speaker, we are also trying to pay the debt that was left behind by the previous government. So, Mr. Speaker, we are working on it.
The Gender Minister, Otiku Afisa-Jaba, says government is hoping to use its social intervention policies to tackle the issue of child labor in Ghana. Reacting to the latest Ghana Living Standard survey on the issue, which indicates that the country is doing a poor job in confronting the menace, she says the free SHS policy, the One District, One Factory initiative and the LIP program, among others, will help significantly address the problem. She was speaking at the launch of Masi Foundation, an NGO focusing on child labor in Accra. There's more in this report.
According to latest Ghana Living Standard Survey Round 6 on child labor in Ghana, out of 8,697,602 children aged 5 to 7 years in Ghana, an estimated 2.5 million, representing 28.5%, work during the 7 days of the week. 1.9 million, representing 21.8%, were involved in child labor, while 1.2 million, representing 14.2%, were engaged in hazardous forms of child labor. This means 1 in every 5 children in Ghana is in a form of child labor. Speaking on the theme, Stop Child Labor in Ghana, School is the Best Place to Work, the Gender Minister says effective elimination of child labor requires policies that address persistent poverty and vulnerability of households to economic issues. She identified education and social protection, among others, as key policy responses to address the menace.
In spite of this gloomy picture, there is still hope. All is not yet lost. Our policy responses to the challenge are the development and implementation of a national plan of action against child labor, 2009 to 2015, and then the successor plan 2017 to 2021, a national social protection policy, and educational reform programs, including free compulsory basic education, and the new free senior high school policy by President Akufo-Addo's administration.
In his welcome address, board member of the foundation, Togbi Goba Tenge, says the nation is at risk if the menace is not curbed, as most of these children end up as miscreants.
Our kids are too much deterred with our precious assets of Ghana. Our children are our future.
Let us start putting money somewhere for a few people to whittle away to foreign accounts. A recent survey shows that our governments have not been supporting the budget to free children from child labor. I appeal to the government strongly to correct that anomaly towards our children in order to restore that international image of Ghana.
International charity worker and ambassador of Stop Child Labor in Ghana, Harriet Holu, says the initiative was fueled by his experience as a street child.
As I was saying, I was a victim to this child labor, not someone who sent me there, but I myself, things were not going well, and I decided to go into it. So after I found out that it's a very bad practice and a very bad habit, I then tried myself to come out. So after coming out, I work with an NGO that's advocating against child labor. But I found out that they are aware of doing the advocacy is not the best way. So I decided to find a different way of taking the action, not about advocacy and then meeting homes to homes again. It's about going the Neshiwa by acting as an action, project.
Massey Foundation is an NGO with focus on protecting the rights of children.
And that's it for the latest news update we have. We have a lot more news. We'll be reviewing the newspapers and we'll look at some of the stories on the online portals.